In this class, we will start our topic with animations. So how can we do animations with JavaScript? So let's see. We'll first create another file over here. Okay. Now first what we'll do is HTML. We'll create something in HTML page. Okay. So in index.html, we'll create something, and on that particular container, we'll apply that particular animation. Okay. So let's style it. Okay, let's create. So first we will remove all this over here, and let's check whether it is empty or not. So kind of it is empty. So I will also remove this over here. Okay, and okay. So here we are getting empty space. Okay, so what we will do is we will create two divs actually. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create two divs over here, div, and here what we'll do is we'll give that particular div, the outside div, as an id as container. Okay, so this is the main container actually. Okay, inside this we will provide another div. Okay, so this has another div. Okay, so this container is the wrapping div. Okay, so inside the second div we'll give the id as animate. Okay, like this. Now we are here, we have two divs. Now when we'll refresh the page, we'll not get anything. Okay, so first of all we have to style it. Okay, so style both the divs over here. So here we have our style tag. Inside this, first we will target the container. So we have an id, so we'll target it with the help of hash. Okay, so inside this what we'll do is we'll fix some certain width and height. Okay, so we'll use width as suppose 550 pixel, and height also as 550 pixel. Let's say suppose I will use 450 actually. Okay, so I'm using height as 450 pixel. Okay, now here we'll use background color actually. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll use a background color as suppose green. Okay, or green yellow. Okay, so we are providing that particular container a width and height and background color. Okay, so let's see. So here we have our container that has a width and height and a background color. Okay, now we'll provide another div that is inside this particular div. Okay, so in order to position in order to position that the second div inside this particular div, we have to use a position property. Okay, so we'll set this outside container as relative positioning. Okay, so you have studied it in our CSS tutorial. In order to position a particular div inside a particular div, we have to position it. Okay, one has to be relative positioned, and another has to be absolute positioned. Okay, so here we are setting the outer div as relative position. Okay, now we'll design style the animate means our second div over here. So we have our animate. Okay, id, so we are targeting that particular id. Here I will use position absolute over here. Okay, so this is the relative position, so it will start from this container position over here. Okay, so I will give width and height of that particular div, suppose 50 pixel, and height also a 50 pixel, and then a background color, suppose of gray. Okay, so we are providing all this. Now let's see what is the result. So here we have our gray div. Okay, so this is the div. So we are positioning the div inside this particular container over here by the help of relative position and absolute position. Okay, now we will apply animation in this container over here inside this small div to this small div over here. Okay, so how can we do that? Now we'll apply JavaScript in order to apply the animation. So we'll go to our index20.js. Here we'll mention animation. Okay. So here we'll write our code for our animation. Okay. So what we'll do is we have to apply animation in this div, in this small div, to this small div. Okay. So we have to target this small div. So it has an ID of animate. Okay. So we'll target by using document dot get element by ID. Okay, and then we'll use that particular name animate. Okay, and we'll store it. We'll not store it. Okay, just okay. We'll first what we'll do is we'll store this particular animate. Okay, like I'll give a smaller div. Okay, so I'm giving a name and we are storing this particular animate over here into this variable smaller div. Okay, now what we'll do is we will set interval. Okay, this is the method over here. So to set the timing actually. Okay, so inside this takes two parameters over here. Okay, so first one will be a function and then the timing after like when you want to change the like how many seconds you want to like continue the animation. Okay, so what I'll do is first I will use a function name over here, suppose frame over here. So this is the name of the function. Okay, then we'll provide the timing. Okay, suppose 5 seconds. Okay, so I want the animation to continue till 5 seconds. Okay, so I'm providing 5 seconds here. So here what we'll do is store it in a variable. Okay, suppose any variable interval equals to set interval. Okay, like this. Now we'll use this function. Okay, so we'll write some code inside this function. So function frame. Okay, like this. So what we'll do is we will start the positioning. Okay, suppose first we'll give a condition over here. Okay, suppose if position is like 350 pixel. Suppose here what I will do is I will give our code height. What I will do is I'll change the width and height. Okay, so 400 is there, 550 is there, 550 and 450. So I will start from 500 actually. Okay, so here what I will do is I will mention if position is equals to like 500. Okay, then what it should do is it should clear the interval. Okay, so this is the method provided by the JavaScript. Okay, like set interval, it is setting the interval and this like clears the interval. Okay, when you want to end the animation, so it will take this variable over here. Okay, so here we are setting the interval and saving it to this variable. Now it will take this particular variable over here. Okay, so we are passing this interval into this clear interval method over here. Okay, now here we are providing if, and now we have to provide an else condition over here. What we will do is, if the position is not 500, then increase the position. And how can we increase the position? What we want is, we want to we want from, we want to position it like this. Okay, so the top should be, the top value should be position. So here it will increase the position. Okay, so what I will do is, I will target this smaller div over here, smaller div. Then I will give this style property over here, and what we want is, we want to maintain the distance. Okay, this distance over here. Okay, so it will go like this. Okay, so we want to mention the position of the top height. Okay, the top one. Okay, so we'll provide the top property over here equals to this position over here. Okay, this position variable. Okay, POS, and it will be in pixels. Okay, so here it is necessary to provide pixels over here, because the height, width and height we are setting is in pixels over here, you can see. So we have to mention here pixels. Okay, so in the same way we will use the left. From left, what will be the positioning? Okay, so when it will move like this, so it will take the top and the left position over here. Okay, so here what we are doing is, what we'll do is, we'll use a square over here. Okay, so what we are doing is, we are incrementing if the position is not 500. Okay, so then increment the position. Okay, so increment the position and take this value. Okay, this top, increment the top and the left position. Okay, so we want to animate this in this way. Okay, so it will take the top and the left position. Okay, so it will increment it in like this. Okay, so the top position will be incremented and the left position will be incremented. Okay, when it will be placed here, so you can see the top position is disturbed and the left position is disturbed. Then it will come here, so the top position is disturbed and the left position is disturbed. So like this, our position that is in pixel will be incremented. Okay, so here this is the code for our animation. Okay, so here I will use, like here I have used position. Okay, so we have to initialize it. So we haven't initialized our position over here, so we will initialize it with a 0. Okay, so it will start from 0. So we'll save it, and now we have to link it first. So we'll link it with index20.js. Okay, now when we refresh this, so here you can see, I just make here what is the some problem occurs, some problem occurred, like here we are starting the position. Okay, so here what we are doing is, what is the problem actually? Here we are initializing the variable locally. Okay, so we have to initialize the variable globally actually. Okay, because we are starting the position, so we are initializing the function frame from here. Okay, so this function is called from here. Okay, so this position should be above from this set interval method. Okay, because the frame function is called from here. Okay, so this position should be above from this function where it is called. So now let's save it and check whether it works or not. So now you can see we have our animation working. Okay, so you can see it is like sliding it in diagonally. It is sliding diagonally because we are providing the top and the left positioning over here. Okay, so the position is incremented in this position. Okay, so we are incrementing the position, top position, and then the left position. Okay, and it is like the animation continues till 5 seconds. Okay, if we mention more time here, suppose 10 seconds, the speed will be slow. So you can see the animation ends in 10 seconds. Okay, suppose I will increase the timing here. Suppose I will change it to 20 seconds. Okay, so now you can see the animation is more slow. Now the animation will end in 20 seconds. Okay, so this is the code for setting an animation. So what we are doing here is we are first targeting that smaller div. Okay, this smaller div over here, and then we have to set the interval. Okay, so we are this calling this method set interval method, and inside this it will take two parameters. One is a function, okay, in which we have to write our code, and then the timing till when our animation will be continued. Okay, then we'll save this set interval in our variable. Okay, then we'll write our function. In this, what we are doing is here we are taking condition if the position extends from 500 pixel. Okay, clear the interval means this interval that we have set, clear that particular interval. Else if it is less, then increment that position, and the which position, the top position and the left position. Okay, so this is the required code for doing a simple animation. Okay, so this is the basic step. Okay, so in this way we can do animation with the help of JavaScript. Now we have completed our animation topic. Now we'll move forward to our DOM events. Okay, so what are events? Actually, when we want to perform something, like when we want to click a button. Okay, so this clicking is actually an event. Okay, suppose when we hover onto this button. Okay, so this hovering is also actually a event. Okay, so there are various events, so we'll see one by one. Okay, so first we'll make another file. Okay, here we'll write DOM events. Okay, so we'll write our topic as DOM events. Okay, so various DOM events are there. Okay, so the common one is on click. Okay, so I will, what is the use of on click? Okay, when in HTML, when we use a button, suppose here we haven't used any button over here actually, here you can see when we are applying a button over here. Okay, so we have written an event over here. Okay, so we have applied an event, that is on click, means when we click onto that button, perform some function. Okay, here we are writing like this. Okay, so we can also give a function name over here, and we can write that code inside that function. Okay, so here this is the particular event. Okay, suppose when a button is clicked, perform something. Okay, so here I will remove this code over here, and I will simply write my function. Okay, like this. So what we want is we want to perform something when this button is clicked. We want to execute a function over here. Okay, so we'll call this function inside this index21.js. Okay, so first we'll target this button. So how can we target? Suppose I will give an ID over here, btn, like this. Okay, so we'll target this button over here, document dot get element by sorry get element by id, and we'll use our button. Okay, so we have we are targeting this button over here, and I will use store this button in a btn variable over here. Okay, so here I will suppose give another name, actually, like selected button. Okay, like this. So we are storing this button. Okay, this button inside this selected button variable. Now what we want is we want to perform that particular function. We want to call that particular function. So function my function, like this, and now we want to perform something. Okay, when a button is clicked. Okay, so what we want is we want to suppose what we'll do is we'll change the color of this button. Okay, font color actually. Okay, so we'll change it to suppose yellow. So here we have our selected button. So we will target this selected button dot style. Okay, so we want to change the font color. So we'll use this style property and then the property name, that is color over here. Okay, selected button dot style dot color equals to then the value of that particular color. Okay, so in this way we are targeting this button and we are changing the color of the particular button upon clicking that particular button. Okay, now we'll change the first we'll change the link over here index21.js. So what we are doing here is we are adding an event inside this button. Okay, on click. So when this button is clicked, perform some function. Okay, execute a function, this my function over here, and we are writing a code inside this. What we are doing here is we are changing the font color to yellow. Okay, so we'll refresh it. Now when we click onto this button, notice the font color changes to yellow. Okay, suppose I will change it to red over here. Okay, so you can see more clearly. So I will now the default color is black. When we click onto this button, now the font color changes to red. Okay, so in this way we can apply the on click event inside a button. Okay, you can also apply this on click event inside any tag. Okay, we are I'm applying only onto this button over here. Okay, so this is the event. This on click is a event actually. So here we have covered our on click event first. Now our second event will be, suppose here what I will do is, now the second event that we'll use is on change. Okay, so here we can use our on change event. Okay, this is the on change event. So this on change event is generally applied on input fields actually. Okay, so here we have our input field. Okay, so I will just copy this and paste it over here. Okay, so we have our input field here. So this has an ID of demo. Suppose I will change it to suppose input field. Okay, like this we are giving an ID to this input field. So now we can target that input. We can give any name. Okay, so you can, so I'm giving input fields over here equals to, sorry, input field, and I will target by the ID document dot get element by ID. Then I will target the input field. Okay, so we are storing that particular input inside this input field variable. Okay, so what on change does is when we like leave the input field, we will, when on change is applied to a particular input field, suppose here I will apply on change over here. Okay, equals to my function. So I'm taking this name. You can use any name. Okay, you can change, you can, yeah, use any name. Okay, so what we are doing is actually we'll wrap it inside our codes like this. So here I am using my function. Okay, so here what onChange does is when you leave the input field, it will perform execute this function. Okay, so we have to write a particular function. Okay, so we have to write something inside this function. So what code will be there? So what we want is we'll write, suppose I'll change the name actually, here input function actually. So I'll change it, and here I will target that function input function. Okay, so what we are doing here is when we'll like this on change actually refers when actually is executed when we leave the input field. Okay, means when we change the input fields. Okay, input field values. So here what we'll do is we want to target the value inside the input. Okay, suppose here we are taking the input field. Okay, so we want to access the value. Okay, so how can we access the value? So input field dot value like this. Now we are accessing the value of that particular input field. Okay, so what we want is we want to change when we like leave the input field, we want the input field, the values of that input fields to change it into uppercase. Okay, so input field dot value dot to uppercase. Okay, so I'll use a property that is to uppercase over here. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are applying on change inside this input field. Okay, so when we leave that particular input, execute this function, and inside this function what we are doing here is we are accessing the value that is inside the input field, and we are changing it to uppercase. Okay, so let's save it. Okay, let's save it. So we have our input field here. Now I will write something like this. When we here we have our let values in lowercase. Okay, suppose when I will leave this input field, now you can see the function is executed and it converts all the values to uppercase. Okay, when I lost the focus inside that input box, it executes that function, and inside that function what I've done is I've taken the values and changed it to uppercase. Okay, I've changed all the letters to uppercase. Okay, so this is the on change event, and this is the way that we can use this on change. Okay, so generally it is used in input fields. Okay, when we like leave the input fields, execute this function. Okay, so we are executing this function. So we are first accessing the value inside that input field, and we are changing the value to uppercase. Okay, so this is the second event. Okay, now we'll have our third event, that is on mouse over. Okay, means when we place our mouse, okay, the function will be executed. Okay, suppose we'll take the help of, we'll take this example only. Here our button. Okay, so here what we are doing is we are applying an on click event over here. I will change it to on mouse over, like this. Okay, so what we'll do is when we hover onto that particular button, I want to change the background color of that button. Okay, so here when we hover onto that button, this function will be executed. Now inside this function, from here I will copy, cut and paste it. Okay, now what we want is we want to change the background color like this. So what we want is we want to change the background color to red. Okay, so here we are targeting this button over here. Okay, so we are targeting this button over here, and when will hover onto this button, this function will be executed. My function will be executed, and inside this what we have done is we have changed the background color to, we are changing the background color to red. Okay, so now let's refresh it. So we have our button. So here you can see when we hover onto that particular button, the background color has been changed. Okay, so in this way we have different events. Okay, on mouse over, on mouse out. Okay, suppose here you can see when we'll apply on mouse out, the function will be executed when we will like when we'll place the cursor, and when we will go outside that particular button, then that function will be executed. Suppose when we hover onto this button, then nothing happens. When we move out from that button, that function will be executed and change the background color. Okay, so these are some of the events. Okay, so there are various events. Okay, so you can go to the W3 schools and you can check the DOM event object reference. Okay, so from here W3 schools, go to JavaScript, and here go to HTML DOM, and here you can see DOM events. You can go to the reference. Actually here you will get all the events that are used. Okay, so these many events are there. Okay, so the common ones that are used is like the blur, click, change. Okay, so these are the common, like focus. Okay, when we'll use focus, see, when we'll use on focus, like here what it is telling us, when we are using on focus event, execute this function, and inside this what we are doing here, we are changing the background color to yellow. When focus onto this input box, the background color has been changed to yellow. Okay, so these are the normal events. Okay, so when you will use that event and apply that function, so like you have to know the functionality of every event. Okay, when that functionality is used. Okay, so here you can see mouse down, mouse enter, mouse leave. Okay, so these are the normal events. Okay, so you can go through all the events over here. Okay, so I've told you how to use that event. You can apply that particular event and apply a function over here, or you can also do like this. Okay, you can use this, cut this, and you can like do like this. Okay, so I've used a selected button over here. Instead of that selected button, we will copy this from here and we'll just paste here. Okay, like here we have to wrap inside double quotes, and here we will, just a minute, so here we'll use like this. Here I will use this single quotes over here. Okay, so here we are differentiating. So first we have wrapped inside double quotes, and inside that we have mentioned a single quote like this. So now when we do like this, then also it will work in the same way. So we are providing a on mouse out event, means when we hover onto this event, nothing happens. When we hover, like when we go out onto from this button, our function will be executed and our button is changing the background color. Okay, so we can also do it in inline way, or you can do it in an external way like this. Okay, so both the methods are right. So go through these events, all of the events. Okay, so the method will be same. Okay, so you can, like suppose you can use the drop event, so it will describe like this. Okay, the event occurs when the dragged element is dropped on the drop target. Okay, so here you can see when we go to the drop event, so here you can see when we drag onto this particular element, so you can see this drag actually is an advanced part. Okay, so I'll take another, like here when we use input field key up key load. Okay, so when we take on load, so when the page loads, so here we have executed a function that says when we load the page first time, give us an alert box. Okay, so here you can see we are using onload and we are executing a function, and this function says give me a give me an alert message, that is that page is loaded. Okay, so this event occurs always when the page loads for the first time. See, when the page loads for the first time, an alert box comes with the message page is loaded. Okay, so different events have different features. Okay, so you can take the help from here. Okay, so we have gone through some of the events. So now our next topic will be how do we add an event listener actually. Okay, so what we'll do is our next topic will be to add an event listener. So suppose here I will remove all this. Now our topic will be event listener over here. So what is an event listener? It basically listens to an event and performs some action. Okay, like here when we add certain event, suppose on mouse out, so here we are doing in a inline way. Okay, so here we are performing the function, the action in the same line. Okay, but when we add an event listener, we can add two different events to that particular element. Okay, suppose here in button we can add two different events in the same button actually, okay, with the help of event listener. So now we'll talk about event listener. So how do we apply an event listener? Here what we'll do is, here suppose I will remove all this and I'll just use my function name here over here. So I will give this name, my function over here. Now we will attach an event listener to this button. Suppose I will change this to on click. So I am adding an on click event to this button over here. Now we will add an event listener to this button here. Sorry, here will not add manually. Actually, what we'll do is we'll remove this, and here we will add this event with the help of event listener over here. Now we'll go to our index21.js. Now we'll target that particular button over here. So how can we target that button? So with the help of this ID over here, we can target this button. Now here I will use variable btn, any variable name you can take. So I'll take this btn and here I will target it by its ID. So like this. So ID is btn. Here I will take another name, suppose like button click, like this. Now here when we writing like this, so now we have selected this button, we are targeting this button over here. Okay, so what we want is we want to add an event to this button. So now what we will do is, here you can do like this, dot add event listener and then an event. Suppose I will add a click event, so it will take two parameters. One is the event and second is the function over here. Suppose I will write my function over here like this. Okay, so this is taking first it is taking the event name and then the required function. Okay, now what we want is we want to perform that function. So I will write function, the name of that function, and inside this I will perform some action. So what we want to do is we want to simply alert the message. We want to open an alert box by clicking onto this button. Okay, so we'll simply use an alert box over here with no message over here. Okay, so what we are doing is we are simply selecting that particular button and we are adding an event with the help of add event listener, and then we are passing this click event over here, and then the second parameter is our my function over here, means that the function that is to be executed. So here inside this function we are just opening an alert box over here. So here first we'll change the I. So here we have our path as index21.js. Now we'll check whether it works or not. Okay, so here you can see when I will click on this, just a minute here, what I've done is I've added an event listener, and suppose remove all this. Now we are targeting this button over here. Just a minute, actually. Here what I've done is, so I've selected this button over here. Now when we reload, so it is coming, so it is the alert box is coming when we are first loading the page. So we have to make it correct actually. So when we click onto this button, an alert box should come. So let us check where we are making the mistake. So here, from here, we are taking the button and we are targeting that particular button over here, and then we are calling this add event listener, and then we are attaching the event over here, and then here I am. Okay, so I don't have to execute this function over here. We have to just write that particular write the particular name of that function. Okay, like this. So here we'll not call that function. Here we'll simply pass a reference to this function over here. Okay, so now it should work. Suppose when we refresh this page, now no alert box appears, but when we click onto this button, see, an alert box is showing over here. Okay, so here we are adding an event listener, that is this click event, and we are executing a function. Right now here we are passing this my function reference over here, and inside that we are simply opening an alert box. Okay, so here if we have one line of code, we can simply write like this. What we'll do is we'll simply pass that particular alert inside this function over here. Okay, like this. So we can do like this. If we have one line of code, okay, suppose we want only one line of code inside that function, so we can pass that uh, particular code inside this function only in that particular line only. Okay, so this is the first method. Now what we'll do is here what I'll do, I'll just comment it out. Now here we don't have to unnecessarily use this because we are not using this btn click variable anywhere. Okay, so this is kind of unnecessary to initialize a variable over here. Okay, now when we initialize a variable over here, btn click like this. So now first we have to target this button like this. Now we can use this button click and add this particular event listener or any event listener to this button. Okay, suppose what we will first target this btn click button actually and add an event listener, and then what we'll do is we'll perform some event. Suppose first will be click event. Notice one more thing here. When we are applying this add event listener, we are not using on click over here. Okay, so here what we are doing is in the previous cases we are using on click like this. Okay, on click equals to and then the function name over here. Okay, so when we are writing that particular event on that particular line or in the next JavaScript file. Okay, so you have to mention the on prefix over here. Okay, but when we are using add event listener, you don't have to use that prefix on in every event. Okay, so you will simply use the click. Suppose on load, so you will simply use load. You will not use the on prefix over here. Okay, when we are using add event listener. So this is the difference between the add event listener and the normal event when we use. So here what we'll do is we'll perform some function over here. Suppose my function. Now we will use this function. So here I will simply name this function as change color. Okay, like this. So what we'll do is you can guess what we are doing here is we are just changing the we'll change the color. Okay, by performing we'll write some code inside that particular function, and what we'll do is we'll change the color of that particular button. Okay, so here I will use change background color like this. So now it is clear what we have to do inside that function. Okay, so by seeing this name, we can understand that inside this function we are changing the background color of that particular button. Now what we'll do is we'll use btn click dot style dot background color equals to red like this. So here we are targeting this button and then we are changing the CSS actually. Okay, so we have to use this style property over here and then the property name like background color or color. Okay, so we are changing background color here and then we'll simply provide the value over here. Now let us check whether it works or not. So first we have targeting that particular button and assigning it a name. Then we are adding an event listener and then we are passing two parameters. First is the click event and second is the function name, and inside that function we are changing the background color of the button. Notice one thing here, when we pass this function, we are passing this function here in the second parameter of this event listener, we are passing it as a string. Okay, so when we pass this as a string, this function will be considered as a string. Okay, not a function. Okay, so now when we save this and when we refresh this and when we click on this button, nothing happens because we are assigning a string to this event listener over here. So we have to pass this function here. Okay, we don't have to call, we just pass a reference over here. Okay, like this. So here we are passing this function inside the second parameter of this add event listener. Now when we save this and refresh and when we click on this button, notice the background of the color of the button has changed to red. Okay, so in this way we can add any event listener to any element. Suppose we can also add multiple event listeners to the same element. What we'll do here is we'll add another event listener. In now I will add mouse out. Okay, on mouse out. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll change the font color. Suppose so we have to write another function over here. Function change color like this, and inside this what we want is we want to change the color of this font to yellow. Suppose yellow or green. Okay, suppose green. So we'll target that this particular button over here, button click that, then we'll add the style, then we want to change the color. Okay, so like this btn click dot style dot color, and we want to provide a certain color, suppose green. Now we are changing it to green. Now suppose save it and let's see what happens. We'll refresh this and now when we click onto this button and suppose here you can see when we like, suppose I will show it again. When we hover onto this button, nothing happens. But when we move out to this button, see the color of the font color of the button has now changed. Okay, but when we click it, now the background color has changed. Okay, so this mouse out means this mouse out event means when we move out the cursor from this button, the font color will be changed. Okay, here we have executed a function in which we have what we have written is change the color of the button. Okay, font color of the button. In the first event listener, we have changed the background color by using the click event listener, and in the second event listener what we have done is we have added our mouse out event and we have changed the font color of the button. Okay, so in this way you can add multiple events using this add event listener. When we are not using the event listener here, we can only apply only one event to a particular element. But with this event listener, we can apply multiple events into a particular element. Okay, into one element. So this is it. So this is about event listener. Now the next topic we will study into the next lecture.